Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the February 9th Grafton School Committee meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Grafton School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that people who'd like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by visiting the Zoom link found on the Grafton Town website. We will take attendance and we'll announce all the committee members and school officials on the call, and we will have a roll call vote for all votes. And I will take roll call right now. Laura Often here, Jennifer Conley.
Jennifer Connolly here.
Liz Spinney.
Here.
Rahul Rati.
Rahul Rati here.
James Dewar.
Dewar here.
Annabelle Weber.
Here.
Jay Cummings.
Here.
Tracy Kalo.
Here.
Anita Patel.
Here.
Kristen Gasper.
Here.
Jim Pignataro.
Here.
And Sharon Buckley.
Here.
Excellent. And Amy Marr will be joining us late. She is presenting, I was going to say she's downstairs, but she's presenting at the select board meeting tonight. Public comment is currently suspended. Our Q&A is open for questions only, and we ask that our viewers at home continue the same decorum they would use during an in-person meeting. We'll allow one question and one follow-up during the subject, and we'll retain the right to ask anyone to leave who's acting inappropriately. And as always, we invite you to reach out to us via our school email accounts or on our Facebook page. And with that, actually, I was thinking it's nice that we're remote tonight because we would have canceled our meeting tonight because of snow. So we get to meet together. And I'm going to turn it over to our high school principal, Jim Pignataro, and our director of guidance, Sharon Buckley. Sharon, did I get your title right?
You did.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for coming. They're going to present the program. Are we doing the update first or the program of studies?
Program of studies first.
All right, good. Then we have our right slides up. We'll be doing the program of studies presentation.
So thank you, Laura, and thank you everybody for having us here tonight to present the program of studies. I want to thank Sharon Buckley, Beth Wolfline for doing the bulk of the work, putting the document together. In particular, I want to thank our department heads who put a lot of time and effort into looking at the wording of courses, making changes, making any adjustments. So I appreciate the efforts of the department heads. Despite this year with so many challenges going on, we at Grafton High School are still looking for ways to enhance our program, whether that's adding new courses, new opportunities for our students, changing the wording of courses to make it more reflective of what's going on in our society today. So that's what you're going to see in this program of studies and our changes. There's not a lot of significant changes, but I think there's more opportunities for students in general, and then I'm going to turn over to Sharon in a few minutes. But just want to kind of touch upon some of the big picture items that are in our program of studies for next year. We've already been to you as far as the removal of class rank. We talked about the benefits of doing that. We looked at a lot of our courses and we made changes to them, whether that's because of DESE guidelines or really looking at the social challenges that are in our world today and developing a course that is reflecting some of the challenges that are out there in our society. We've looked at some of our courses in departments and tried to create pathways for our students for beyond Grafton High School and reflect what these students are taking within a particular department. And then kind of setting them on a path after Grafton High School. We always say to the students, you know, this is just a 4-year stepping stone. We want to prepare you for what's next, whether that's in the colleges or whether that's in the workforce, the military, whatever that may be. We want to make sure that our students are well prepared. We're going to talk about the seal of biliteracy. This was something that we started last year. We have 3 students that will receive that distinction on their diploma. And you'll hear about a couple other courses or programs that we're going to have where students can receive distinction on their diploma. We'll talk about some of our special education programs or our transition programs for students that have been hospitalized or have suffered a concussion or whatever, that they're transitioning back into the high school. We put a lot of time and effort into it. Where some of our faculty working with some of our neediest students have done an excellent job. We're also mentioning about our community partnerships, not only with Blackstone Valley Education Foundation, but also the partnerships with Sigmund Community College as far as having our students take courses at the college level to receive credit. This is something that we used to do years ago at Nichols College. So we're kind of bringing that back where students can take 1 or 2 courses as part of their program and they can earn college credit. So that's kind of the big picture of where we're at. Again, we want to try to create as many opportunities for our students and again, build them a solid foundation for the next steps they take after Grafton High School. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to kind of start us off with some of the changes.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Before I move on from this slide, just to expound a little bit, we do not have a separate slide on the student support program or the transition program. And while it's in its 2nd year of existence, we gave it some legitimacy by including it in the program of studies. We know that this segment of our population is only growing, unfortunately, with increased social emotional needs and finding ways to have students make a smoother transition back to the high school and to prevent students from dropping out. So you will see that in the program of studies written up with some details around the student support program and the transition program. So when we're looking at the course adjustments or new courses that are added this year, let me just highlight quickly the math component. We have been offering AP Calc BC, which is the highest level AP math course that we offer. And one of our teachers, Ms. Duras, has been presenting that course as an independent study for students because we didn't have high numbers of kids who were requesting that. But we're finding over the time of the last year and a half that it appears as though our math program is growing and there's a greater demand of students wanting that course. So it is included in the program of studies and it will be included in Ms. Duras' course load for the coming year, legit class. Social studies, Jim mentioned the changes to some of DESE's curricular guidelines. And in keeping with those, Grafton High School Social Studies Department has taken on a what they call thematic approach to progression in history and social sciences. And because of that, we have switched from a World Civilization II program at freshman level to World History. And that will be offered at both CP and honors level. Additionally, Grafton High has really done a great job and some of our teachers at looking at social needs, social culture norms, and just the whole premise of how we can teach students about culture changes. And from the development of a group, a social culture group in the school, the social studies department has come up with a new elective for next year. It's available to grades 9 through 12, semester-long course called Social Movement and Cultural Change. So those are 2 new and exciting adjustments around new courses. Additionally, you will see a greater focus given in the program of studies around a counseling curriculum. While we have been doing good interventions around counseling our students around grade selection, course selection, plans for after high school, we aim to become more aligned with DESE's MASS model and DESE's MyCap programs that help to really focus on having students create what they call a MyCap or a My College and Academic Plan. Eventually, we hope to have a MyCap established for all of our students from freshman year on. And dare I say, we begin to possibly do some of those interventions at middle school level when students are just starting to think about what do they want to be when they grow up. I think as educators, we're charged with needing to help students find those pathways and provide strategic direction and give them some ideas of focus. Some kids come to us and they know exactly what they want to be and where they want to go, but the majority of students, not surprisingly, aren't quite sure yet. So it's incumbent upon us to provide them with some type of structure and framework that is not set in stone, but rather give them some ideas. And then finally, our business and computer department, in keeping with the Mass Department of Higher Education that has established admission standards for state colleges and university programs, and in particular the UMass system, we've identified that some of our business courses can actually have GPA weight added to them because they are recognized as college readiness, rigorous coursework. So while the description of these courses won't be changing, we are adding GPA weight to Intro to Business, which is a full year class, personal finance, entrepreneurship, sport management, which are half year classes, in addition to marketing. Our Computer Science 2 course, we've increased the rigor of the grading weight because it is an advanced course. So it will be more in line with an honors level grade weight and curriculum. And then finally, our accounting program, we're moving to grades 10 to 12, as it's viewed as an advanced level business course. Do you want me to pause here, Laura, for any questions about what was just presented, or should I continue?
Sure, we can pause. Are there any questions? I don't think so.
Okay. Senior internship is nothing new. However, it was introduced to us last year. Unfortunately, as we know, COVID struck and we were unable to complete our first round of our senior internship program. Jason Cody and I met with a group of seniors over the last 2 Friday half days, where we have 15 students, between 15 and 20, who have expressed an interest this year for the senior internship program. Through this program, students are able to explore areas of interest and potential academic fields of interest for them in place of their Q4 coursework. They would be required to attend a senior internship workshop series, but they can still participate in all academic and co-curricular commitments. We do take into account the fact that some of those seniors might be taking AP courses, and we adjust the requirements for the internship accordingly. We will be conducting or taking applications through next week, through March 1st. And we're hopeful that we have students who are going to move forward with this exciting program. Jim mentioned our partnerships with some community people, namely Blackstone Valley Ed Foundation, the Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce, as well as other folks in our community who will help to support not only the senior internship program, but pathways and things that Grafton High School can do in conjunction with our partners in years to come. One of the things that we were able to do this year with the help of Kevin Carney, who has some experience around diplomas of distinction and competency determinations, was to really expand upon what was already started at Grafton High School. In fact, the STEM concentration will see its first 4-year completion this year with our seniors. We have 5 students who indeed met the Diploma of Distinction for STEM work. So it's exciting that we're able to help students and families identify particular areas of consistent interest from what's a really vast and comprehensive program of studies. It can be somewhat overwhelming to look at all this coursework amongst all departments. But if we can start to frame things for students and families, I think it helps them to get a better handle on where they might want to land. It's really not a long time for students to work, the 4 years that we have them. So the sooner that we can get them thinking about a particular pathway or area of interest, I think the better planning and the better foresight that they will have. So the 3 areas or studies of concentration in addition to the STEAM would be the creative arts and communication, and then the business pathway. Students will work with teachers and counselors to build, as I referenced, that MyCap or college and academic plan. And eventually down the road, I mean, this is kind of a rough draft and we're just getting started with these ideas. Down the road, we would get more specific with some of the criteria. You will see the framework in place in our program of studies now. I want to make sure to be clear that we are not asking students or families to necessarily commit to any one pathway from freshman year on. That's quite different. Independent academies like that is quite different than what we are aiming to do here. I guess the best way I could reiterate is that we're trying to help them frame a focus. Jim mentioned the seal of biliteracy. I mentioned that here in this slide because again, in the program of studies, we've legitimized what has been happening at Grafton High School. We've put it in writing that it's open to all students who might want to try to achieve that seal of biliteracy around language acquisition. That is actually achieved by taking a national exam. This is headed up by Kristen Germain, our world language coordinator. We have 3 students this year. I'm sorry, 3 students last year who met that criteria. Any questions on that?
Liz?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of questions. Sorry if I missed this. When do you start working with students on the MyCap program?
We start, well, the way that we're going to be rolling out the new curriculum and that mass model, we will start freshman year. There are some programs in which middle school students start some of that work. But again, we're slowly rolling out some new programming with the aim and the focus to eventually expand.
Okay. And as far as the senior internship goes, you said that you work with them to adjust the curriculum if they have a particularly demanding curriculum for the fourth quarter. How would you go about doing that? How does that get balanced with?
Right, it's a good question. It's all about the number of hours in the internship. If for every AP course that a student has, we reduce the number of hours that required in that internship because they do still have the commitment to that coursework. And we want to honor the fact that students need to prepare for that final AP exam.
Okay. Just for AP course.
One thing with that, as well as not only the AP students, but if the student was involved in band or chorus and they were preparing for a final performance of the year, spring concert, we would again adjust the hours so that students would come back to the school to work with the concert band or the chamber choir, just to prepare for that performance for the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. And then I had one more question regarding the pathways and concentrations. How do you balance that against making sure that the students are well-rounded when they graduate as well? I'm sure they're still getting art classes and things like that, but how much of it is going to the concentration versus the regular curriculum that they might have otherwise been required to take?
That's a good question. We have some detailed specifics that weren't put into the program of studies that are going to be recommended courses that can be taken within each concentration. We want to keep in mind that students have interest beyond maybe just a designation in business. We want to allow for room for electives still, certainly, but we also need to keep in mind that they have graduation course requirements that need to be met. And this is a program where if a student elects a certain concentration and decides to move out of it, they won't be penalized. So if they think they want business, they start that freshman year, and then end of sophomore year, they discover I really am more of a humanities and arts communication student, they can make those adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a quick question. I'm just jumping off of Liz's. So if somebody, I think you just kind of answered it, Sharon, but if somebody is a sophomore or a junior, could they jump into these programs a little late, or do they have to start? Is it just for incoming freshmen?
So they can decide and attempt or declare a particular concentration, but it's nothing that formal. It's more
Okay.
a review of a student would sit with their counselor and their parent, and we would review their transcript and let's see how many courses you took. I venture to say we have recent graduates and past graduates who we could designate as a business concentrated student. We just hadn't thought to identify those courses. So we're helping students to identify those things and track it if they so wish. It's not required, but for example, if we had a student who wanted to go to Bryant University to major in marketing, and they know that from freshman year on, that's where they want to head, we could on their transcript give a distinction in business because, pardon me, they have attempted and taken X number of credit hours in that particular area of concentration.
Gotcha. Great. Well, I love the direction of this. And I also, just a housekeeping, I see questions coming through. We'll take those at the end of the presentation, not as we go, and we can always circle back. So continue, Sharon. Thank you.
You're welcome. We wanted to touch upon the early college high school offering this year because it's a rather exciting addition to our program of studies. It came fast and furiously. Again, Kevin Carney and I worked on this. We had some experience in our previous districts around offering such. And as Jim referenced, Grafton has done work with early college high school in the past with Nichols. But early college high school is moving forward actually in high school education, making partnerships and affiliations with community colleges in your area, where students take college level courses while they're in Grafton High School, and they will earn credit for both college as well as high school. There are certain criteria students need to meet in order to qualify for early college high school. Namely, they need a minimum of 2.7 GPA and a counselor recommendation. And the reason for that is to make sure that they meet with success when they enroll in such programs. These early college credits are transferable to most colleges, public and private, in our area and beyond. The thought that a student can leave high school with up to 16 college credits at a very affordable rate is very appealing to many families and students. The cost of this course for Grafton High students is $250. And for those of you who know the average cost of a college course, that's quite a savings. This year, we were able to offer business law, English 101 and English 102. Pre-calculus will be for next year. And this year we did principles of macroeconomics. These courses are all semester long. The student earns AP grade weight for Grafton High GPA calculations, and they also earned 3 college credits with successful completion of those courses. This year, we had 64 students enroll in an early college high school course, and our first semester students all received A's or B's with 1 C+. Early college high school is different than dual enrollment. I want to make that clear. The traditional dual enrollment program is sometimes called a 12th year program, or at Quincy it's called ACE, which is the Attend College Early program. And there are certain students that would need to commit by July to a 12th year of their Grafton High School to be conducted fully at Quincy. That comes at a full expense to the family. They do not receive financial aid opportunity for that. But basically, it's for the student who has pretty much outgrown high school. They're ready for their next steps. And there are, believe it or not, certain students who are ready for that. They're not the traditional student. So we do still offer dual enrollment. I believe we have 3 or 4 students, current seniors, who are involved with that. But early college high school is quite different. It's along the lines of taking an AP course. It's along the lines of taking a VHS course. So those 3 different types of courses are extensions of what Grafton High School offers in the school building. So it's an exciting time. Some school districts have full-fledged early college high school pathways. Some schools even can afford a student to earn an associate's degree at the time they graduate. So we're just beginning. We're on the cusp of it, and it's exciting. Some schools actually have their faculty become adjunct professors at these colleges that would enable our Grafton High teachers to deliver the QCC curriculum in our building. So there's a lot of room for growth and development in such a program. Jim, that was all we had on updates with details to the program of studies.
I'll just talk a little bit about the timeline. The timeline is similar to what we've done in previous years. There's one significant change. Obviously, this year we're not doing any in-person assemblies with parents. So what we did is what we kind of simulated back in the fall with our open house. The department heads have put together videos that are outlining all the courses within their department, the expectations for 9th graders, again, the different levels of courses. And so each department head has put that together. We received a lot of positive feedback from parents with regards to the open house and the teachers that presented videos. So we're going to have these videos made. They're already made, and we'll be sharing them out over the next week or so. So this follows our timeline that we followed in previous years. So that'll be the one change that's different from other years. And with that, we can take questions on the program of studies.
Excellent. Thank you for that excellent presentation. So many exciting things happening. Any questions from the committee? Jen?
Hi, thank you for the changes and the updates. I do like seeing the changes with the GPA weight to certain classes, and that's now aligning with what's going on in colleges. So that's kind of nice to see. I had one question. I didn't see it on here, but I saw it in the thing that was sent to us. I saw that you offered Calc BC to Quincy, but it was 2.5 credit. How is that different to the one that's being presented at school? Like, is there a difference in that, or what's? I'm not sure. I was just trying to figure out the change.
The Quincy pre-calc class is 5 credits. It's a full year, higher number of class hours. So the pre-calc through QCC is more in line with our full year math course. The Calc BC, the AP Calc BC, is a half-year course. That's the way it's designed, because a student would be in Calc AB and then flip to BC halfway through. It's a little bit different focus on the finality of that AP course.
Okay. Now, I just saw that it was worth 2.5, so I was assuming there was some sort of difference. I just was curious as to what it was, and I'm assuming the students will understand the difference when they sign up for it. And then one more question. When it comes to the courses that people can do for the early college, I know it's on the parents, it's on the family, but do we have something set up to make it accessible to everyone?
To make
Like
the
financial, like
Oh.
the financial part.
Right, through the My School Bucks, is that what you're referencing, Jen?
I don't know. I just didn't know if there was a way to help families. Is there something in place so that it's accessible to parents or families who cannot afford it to take advantage of the?
Oh, I see. I'm sure, Jim, I mean,
Yeah, we haven't
not yet, but
anything in place, but definitely is something we can look at. We just
Yeah,
haven't.
I just don't want to hold back anyone, or if someone who could probably really take advantage of taking these courses and having them graduate with it ahead of time. So I do appreciate you offering. I think it's a great thing to offer for the students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Rahul?
Thank you, Sharon and Jim. I had a question about the early college program. When can the students start taking this program? When can they be part of that?
the early college high school, they can start taking junior year. Because we're piloting it this year, we want to see how our students adapt and adjust to the workload and the course load of a college level course. There may be some circumstances where there are sophomores who would do well. At this point in time, QCC is using 2.7 GPA minimum and counselor recommendation as the entry criteria. I'm not sure if they're going to change that. They used to run what's called an AccuPlacer exam. You would have to qualify by scoring high enough on the AccuPlacer. We are meeting with QCC next week to talk about summer and fall programming. I believe for next year, it's going to remain the same criteria. So it would be probably another year out, Raul, before we contemplate offering this to sophomores. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thanks.
Welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? Annabelle? James? Okay. I had a quick question going back to, first of all, I just want to say I'm so excited about the Quincy offerings. I want to thank you, Sharon, and Kevin, especially. I know you worked really hard on that, and I think it came pretty quick, like you said, at the end of the summer. I'm excited people are taking advantage of it, and I'm sure it's going to grow in the future. And this actually is probably a really dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If let's say you take English 101, or that would take place of the English class that you would take in at the high school, right? It would count instead.
Correct. So let's say in theory, a junior takes English 101. They're done halfway through. Next year as a senior, they could take English 102, or they could take both courses their junior year, freeing them up from needing to take English senior year. However, counselors work hard with students in creating a senior course load and transcript that prepares them well for their first year in college. So
yeah,
we would encourage them to take an English elective, creative writing. This may open up the availability of some English electives again. I mean, we're going to see how that all goes.
Right.
We don't want to sell our students short and have, we're not sending them out there senior year taking all electives and no core courses. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I don't know why you wouldn't want to take more English classes ever, but Right. And same, I think, with the social movement and cultural change class, which I'm very excited about. That also counts. It's not an elective. It would count as a social studies class, or is it an elective?
It's an elective. Many times students take, once they get past the prereqs and the requirements of freshman and sophomore year that are a little tight,
Yeah.
junior might choose an elective that's AP chemistry, or they might choose an elective that's AP psych or social movement. Like it no longer counts as just that social studies requirement.
Right. But would this count as your social studies requirement?
Social movement, that would be an elective.
Gotcha. Okay, that was my question. I didn't ask it right. All right, terrific. Any other questions from
Ryan Mercier and Elizabeth Perry did a lot of good work with that. I can't remember the name of their group, the culture social club.
The social justice group?
Yeah, I think that's what kind of spearheaded this this new elective. So
I'm really, really excited about it. And I'd love to kind of hear more maybe afterwards. Oh, I had one more question. Have there been thoughts for next year about reintroducing G-term?
Yes, we definitely wanted to continue it. Obviously, this year we can't,
Right.
but it's definitely on the books for next year. We have a schedule built for that, and so if we start off the school year, which we think we will, under normal circumstances, we will start planning for that in the fall.
Awesome.
Definitely, it'll be on our plans for next year.
Great news. Thank you. Any other, Liz?
What is G-term?
G-term is, well, let me go back. So if we go back a couple of years ago, we started to look at our assessments in the building. It was part of our professional development programs, and we started to just look at how we're assessing students. And the more conversations we had went beyond just, the pen to paper or on a computer, et cetera, but trying to look at ways that our students could interact with each other, work with each other, work with teachers in not so much it would be non-traditional high school ways. So for example, we had students that were doing a lot of community service activities. We had students that participated in helping out the elderly in Grafton. We had cleanup organizations going on. So we spent, going back now 2 years ago, we spent 3 days with students out in the community, and that was both local and some going out of state over those 3 days. The feedback we received was very positive, and we are planning, again, to move ahead with that.
It was amazing, Liz. It was really like project-based learning, and kids got to forge relationships with different teachers that they wouldn't normally meet with. And there was outdoor education. It was so many different things. They could really dive into a project. People put on a band, like got together and formed and did baking wars. I mean, it was amazing. Really well done.
Now that I hear the explanation, I didn't recall the name of it, I suppose, but I do recall that program being in the school. And I remember hearing a lot of great things about it. So it's good. Thank you.
So got waylaid by COVID, but I'm glad to hear that it'll come back. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, I'm going to go, hearing none, I'll go to the audience. In absence of Amy, I will take questions. See, there's a question from a C. Miller. Will there be any new QCC offerings next year, or the same ones as this year, or has that not been decided yet? I think you already answered that, but in case they missed this.
I mean, the way things have been moving, I wouldn't be surprised if next spring we add some courses, but we want to be careful and thoughtful and methodical in rollout, because it's too important to do it well and do it right before we get too big. We admit there were some glitches this year around communication in some regards and payment. We did get the My School Bucks set up, so that helped. So to answer your question, we aim to offer pre-calc, and that will need to be a fall course. We set it up for spring this year, realizing that wasn't the best in the best interest for our students. I believe we may investigate manufacturing and psychology at some point, but again, we want to do slow, steady, and do it well.
Thank you. Very thoughtful. And then we don't typically read comments, but we had some positive comments from our audience, just thanking you both for the hard work, which I would echo. Great, innovative things coming out of the high school, and thank you to both of you and your team for making that happen. Any other questions for Sharon on the program of studies? Great. And we need to vote on that. So I will take a motion to approve the 2021-2022 program of studies.
Yeah, I move to approve the Grafton High School 2021-22 program of studies as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley.
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Liz Spinney.
Aye.
Rahul Rati.
Already, aye.
And Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 4-0. Great. Thank you so much, Sharon. Are you sticking around for the GHS update, or are you heading out?
Oh, I'm sticking around.
Awesome. Good. Glad to have you. All right. Mr. Pignataro, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So we'd like to present the mid-year report for Grafton High School. I think I want to start off just to praise our teachers, going back before the school year started, just to figure out what we were going to do this year in terms of our schedule, in terms of how do we engage our students, and our teachers really stepped it up and have done a great job as far as teaching our kids both, in person and on remote as well. Some of the things in this first slide, Sharon, if you go to that next one. We've already talked about, but I want to kind of highlight two areas in particular. When we first started to look at the beginning of the school year back in July and August of last year, we made a decision at that time we were going to maintain the level of course offerings at our school. Many high schools either eliminated entire departments, eliminated courses from their program of studies to meet the needs of their students for this academic year. We chose not to do that. We chose to keep all our classes in place, and that included all the required classes, but also all the electives. Again, some schools decided to go away from the electives. We chose not to do that. We felt as though students had that interest, and just like we were talking about adding in new courses, we wanted to make sure the courses that students, signed up for, we still had on the books for them to take this year. The other thing I'll mention to you is that we decided on a bell schedule so that the students had their 7 periods a day because we were looking at those cohort A and cohort B weeks so that they would have all 7 classes each day. It was a tremendous amount of work being put out by students and teachers to have this schedule because they're seeing those classes every day. If I take you back to last year, we had 7 classes, but only 5 classes met a day. So they were dropping 2 classes a day. So this was a big change for the Grafton High School community, both teachers and students. In terms of cohorts, it's pretty straightforward, just like the other schools in our district. The breakdown for the 2 biggest cohorts, obviously A and B, was 331 for cohort A, 328 for B. Cohort C is for students that are in our building every day is 57 students, and then students that are on remote is 157. So that's pretty standard for the district. But again, I cannot thank the teachers and the students enough for the effort they've put in And we've made some tweaks with our schedule to address mass breaks, to address extended block, which we still have in place for students to either get extra help or just a little bit of downtime for them to either make up work, etc. So we want to try to keep as much of the old schedule as possible. We have made a decision moving into next year when we're starting building our schedule, we will go back to the schedule we used to have. So that would be the students would choose 7 classes and they would have 5 classes per day, and the classes would rotate. So we're going back to that, and we've let everybody know that as well. The next slide we've talked about in our program of studies, but again, despite everything that's going on, we still have looked to add in courses, make revisions, create new opportunities for students. So out of all the challenges we've had, we've tried to seek out new ways to engage our students, and so far the feedback has been successful on that. The next slide, again, if you look at it, obviously the school year is different for all schools, but in particular at the high school, where during the school day it has that vibe. You have that that community feel to the school when everybody's in the building, and there was something that was lost this year with that. So despite all those changes, we wanted to make sure that we had things still in place, that students who were part of clubs still could engage in these clubs. And that's with DECA. Many of you know about DECA. It's been highly successful. Students have won many awards, continue to do so this year. It's happened for the past few years. It was mentioned about our Social Justice Coalition. I have to give a shout out to Ryan Mercier and Elizabeth Perry, teachers at our school that have just done a phenomenal job with students that are interested in this. And we have a few programs that are coming up. They meet every other week at the high school. And they've just done a great job with addressing some of the societal issues that are out, in our community, both in Grafton and outside of Grafton. We've started the STARS program again this year, and STARS program is to recognize faculty, staff, and students. They're nominated by other people within our building that have done great things in our school. And then the Mind Matters group was started by Jess Hollis, and this is where the faculty and students will work together to get rid of the stigma that maybe surrounds the mental health, and to try to create a more positive student wellness within our building. And the other part of it is trying to create a more accepting environment within our school. So that is something that's been in place for the second year, and Jess Hollis and a couple other teachers are involved in that. So we can't thank them enough. And the first picture up there is about the Bon Voyage committee. I've met with a group of parents that head up that group. We've had, I believe it's 3 or 4 meetings already this year. I've said it before, and I'll say it here in this meeting, that without the parents from that group last year, there is no way we could have had the senior parade, graduation, without those parent volunteers. They are phenomenal, and we've already started to work on different things that are going to come up later on this year. And I'll mention that to you in a few minutes. The next slide is about some of the activities we have here. We were able to continue with fall sports, excluding football, unified basketball, cheering, and girls volleyball. Those will be part of a fall 2 sport, which will start actually in a couple of weeks. We were able to have the fall play, although it was virtual, Sleepy Hollow. We are in talks right now. I've been meeting with Lisa Scarlett at least twice. We're actually exchanging emails today to do something outdoors using the bleachers and the turf field. So she's working with the students, just trying to develop a plan. So our goal, and we're going to check, obviously we have to check with other people, making sure all the parameters and guidelines are followed, but we are going to have, performances outside, at some point in May. So we're trying to pull all the details together. So that conversation has happened, and we are moving forward with that. So again, despite everything that's going on, we're still able to do a lot of these different activities. Kevin Anderson, our athletic director, he has put together the live streaming for the athletic contest, and that has gotten a lot of positive feedback on it. Many people are viewing those games because right now no spectators are allowed for any of the indoor sports. So we're able to bring those activities to the parents and the community members as well. Want to just mention to you, again, getting co-curricular activities. Our plan right now, going back to the parents, we already have in place that we will have an outdoor graduation. We will have senior class night outside. All the staging will be set up for the night before graduation. So weather permitting, we will have that event. And we're still working on some other things to see, logistically how we can pull off like a scholarship night and a couple other things here for our seniors. We want to make sure that we're able to do some of those things, obviously in safe conditions, but we're working with parents and other school people with regards to that. We're able to continue, although it was different, Spirit Weeks, and part of that was, different themes for each day, but we're also bringing that community aspect to it. So we had coat drives and food drives and made donations to local charities. So again, we wanted to try to keep it as close to possible as in previous years. And then the next slide is about counseling. So I'm gonna let Sharon take that.
Okay, thanks, Jim. This year we had a focus early in the fall on virtual college visits. We conducted those through our Naviance program. Naviance is a platform that we use for students and families to help navigate the college and career planning process. I will be sending out information late spring, early summer to families to reintroduce the program, talk about a single sign-on option for you so you can see what it is your students are working with. Additionally, we just are in the midst of Quincy Instant Decision Days. What that is, we have seniors who fill out an application, a representative from QCC comes to Grafton High School, reviews the application and gives them a decision on the spot. There's no fee for them to complete that application. We had 43 seniors participate so far, and they were all accepted. It's a great feeling for many students to have that first acceptance and in their back pocket for when they walk across the stage. We are in the midst of completing Cohort A and Cohort D Instant Decision Day applications. I wanted to mention one more thing about that college visit, the virtual visits. Pardon me, we had 94 virtual colleges or 94 colleges participate and 62 seniors register for those visits this fall. We aim to offer the same for our juniors this spring, somewhere around April break week. That ties into the junior college planning that's further down the slide. We're in the process of meeting with those, our juniors. We split up the cohorts on the half days and we're actually meeting with them in person in groups of 45 in the auditorium. Selfishly, it's great to be in front of students in person. So we're practicing good social distancing and trying to get in front of the students as much as we can. We will be sending out those presentations as we've done with many presentations via email or Schoology, so all can review them. We're partnering with Blackstone Valley Education Foundation and MIFA, which is the Mass Education Finance Authority. We will be sending out information about a webinar particularly for parents of seniors, what to do after the acceptance. How do you make sense of the financial award letters that you'll receive? That is a very good webinar and one that I would suggest folks attend, especially if you're going through this for the first time with a senior. Elizabeth Wolfline put together a great grade 9 webinar this year for parents of new freshmen. We reviewed expectations, we listened to concerns and questions from parents of freshmen. We know that that can be an unnerving time. We wanted to be able to settle any anxieties or stresses that they might be experiencing. And then finally, the counselors and I visited the Blackstone Valley Ed Hub, which is actually right down the road from Grafton High. I had never been. It's a phenomenal facility that really focuses on advanced manufacturing. We're learning more about opportunities for our students there.
And the final slide, the strength of any school, in particular high schools, is our students, our families, our faculty and staff. And I think to go through this presentation without mentioning these groups would be shortchanging them. They have just been phenomenal this year. Despite all the challenges, we are trying to make things as normal as possible with different events. We have all our courses, we have all the classes, we have all that. But as you know, students like to look forward to a lot of different events, that they can engage in different activities outside the classroom, and we're trying to do as many things as possible. So we cannot thank these different stakeholders enough for the effort, their patience in particular, their flexibility on things, and we will continue to have conversations with the different groups as we move on to the end of the school year, which will come up, as we say to our seniors many times. The graduation day will be here quickly, and we want to make sure that we're putting a lot of things in place for them to enjoy the last part of the school year. And so with that, I will take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Sharon. I'll take questions from the committee. Liz.
Hi, thank you. I remember going on the tour this summer, and one of the things that stuck out in my mind was the directionals through the hallways, and I was just curious how that was going. Are the students have they gotten used to that? Is that working well? Having hallways be one way and having to be routed around if they go past the bathroom they need to get to and that sort of thing. Is it working well?
I don't know, James, Annabelle, you want to answer that?
I'd say I've definitely gotten used to it. I mean, sometimes when I have a class like on the opposite side of the building, I'll be like a minute late, but the teachers they get it. So it's really it's just normal to me. I couldn't imagine walking the opposite way now. It's just second nature.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Sometimes going from gym all the way to math on the third floor is kind of a stressful challenge, but my teachers are completely understanding of it, so it's okay now.
Okay, good to hear.
Everybody's meeting their step quota.
Yeah.
Jen.
I just want to say thank you for everything that you've been doing this year for the students and the class of 2021. And I think not just through the academics, but thank you for making sure that the co-curricular activities we're still going through, because I think it just gives everyone another outlet, and I think they appreciate just having that. Even like Spirit Week, to see like all the pictures and everyone getting involved, it was great to see that it's still there, even though it's only half the cohorts. But I think people are trying to find some normalcy in a very unnormal year. And so thank you for at least all the efforts that you guys are putting forth into a year.
Thank you. And we're still meeting with, I'm meeting with senior class officers, and obviously we'll meet with other seniors as well, just to make sure we're addressing any concerns or any ideas they have. Maybe we're not going to be able to do it, some things the same way as before, but maybe we can do it a little bit differently in a safe way. So we're going to continue having those meetings with the seniors in particular.
Thank you.
Rahul.
I should have probably asked this question earlier, but it's regarding the early college high school program. Do the students, when they take these classes, are they sharing the classroom or the online portal with other high school kids, or are there college students also?
They're with other high school students.
From different schools or just our school?
Grafton High students this
Okay.
year. However, for the spring, a couple of the spring courses, Uxbridge High School had students wanting to take macroeconomics. They didn't fill the minimum requirement, so they hopped into our section. So we partner with other high schools who are doing this so that we try to maximize opportunity for students. So
Okay.
for now, they're with just our students.
Okay.
Liz?
How have you been doing with the need for subs this year? And has it, if it wasn't great, has it gotten better?
It's some days are a little bit more challenging than others. I will say that some of our teachers, if they're able to do it, depending upon the circumstance that they're out, they will teach the kids remotely, and we have the students go to the Commons, and we have somebody, Mike Benkoski, who is in the Commons, so he is able to take attendance, or the teachers may just take attendance, and so many of the students are learning remotely within the Commons. But there are some days it's a little bit more challenging than others, I'll be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I would like to just echo what Jen said. I can't thank you enough, Jim. I appreciate all that you've done, especially I feel like in the high school, this has been even harder for students and parents because of all the milestones that people hit in high school. And I think you've done such a good job of listening and working to give the best they can, especially, just having that graduation set, I'm sure is peace of mind for many parents and students. We were one of the few last year that were able to get a graduation in. So thank you for the work that you did last year as well. And for continuing this challenging year, but making the best of it. And I think at the end of the day, students are still getting a terrific education, and they're going to learn a lot. So that's what matters. So I really appreciate it, Sharon, all the work you've been doing. I know it hasn't been easy on you and your team this year, and we're really lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we let our distinguished members go? All right, well, thank you both. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. And I'm going to pass it over to Jay for our district update.
All right. All right, can you see that?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So for the district update, I'm going to touch on COVID, the K-1 return, which is very exciting. Talk about Kristen Gasper and her new title. Revisit planning a little bit. And because I've received maybe 1,000 snow day questions, I'll touch on that, and I can answer any questions you have about snow days or anything else. So in terms of COVID, overall status, knock on wood, over the past couple of weeks, we've been doing, trending in the right direction, doing very well. No positive cases today, one yesterday, one over the weekend, but certainly a lot better than we were doing for a while there. Obviously, we don't know if it's going to keep up, but we're going to keep our fingers crossed and move forward in the same way we have been, which I think is really just a top-notch approach in terms of safety. Not necessarily today, but at some point, if the committee chooses, I can certainly take direction on in terms of the letters that we send out. We've, since day one, been following the, no pun intended, letter of the law and putting out a letter to the entire community if there's a positive case. Many districts just they've moved away from the letters, and I get it. On one hand, I totally get it, and I get complaints and thanks for the letters. Like, the transparency is a good thing, but boy, I'm sick of getting these letters, and I can assure you I'm sick of sending the letters. But that is as fully transparent as we can possibly be. We're sending it to the entire district as opposed to just that school community. A lot of districts are moving away from the letters, and they have for months now, and they simply update that COVID dashboard, whatever version of a dashboard that they have. So we can do that if the committee at some point wants to meet us, move away from the letters. But unless I hear otherwise, I think that's the most transparent way to move forward. In terms of vaccinations, the K-12, pre-K through 12 staff are still slated to be in that phase 2 of vaccination, which has begun. So that's been in place now for a week and a few days. We still haven't received any information on when and how that will roll out in terms of pre-K through 12 staff. There was initially talk about staff going to the large vaccination centers that they're using right now. And lately there's been talk, but it's nothing more than talk about potentially making the vaccination centers for K-12 either district-based or regionally based, where a few districts could go to, one school, maybe, Grafton High School, and utilize their gymnasium and their bigger space, do it in an afternoon. But again, right now it's just speculation. We have a DESE call coming up Thursday afternoon. I'm hopeful that there's going to be more information on that on Thursday, but we will see. Right now, I don't have any information that's any different or more in depth than what's been released publicly already. We've been waiting for transportation guidelines. These have almost been rumored for maybe 2 months, maybe even longer, about guidelines that are coming out that will lessen the restrictions that we have on our buses in terms of spacing, number of students, et cetera. Again, there's talk that that's going to be released in the next couple of weeks. As soon as it is released, it will be very public, and we'll obviously take a look at it, figure out what it means for us, work with AA Transportation, and put that information out to our parent community. So I've got my fingers crossed that we'll have it by the end of vacation. And then with the nursing staff, I've tried to every week really highlight the instrumental work that our nursing staff has been doing. We've done a lot of hiring around nursing for COVID. They're all listed right here for you. The NA is nursing assistants. I think I've captured everybody. So some of these individuals are student-specific nurses. Some are building-based. Some staff basically that COVID room if somebody's identified as being positive. All of our nurses now have received their second dose of the vaccine, which is fantastic, and are fully trained in terms of the COVID now, or the Binax now testing in all of our schools. So our nursing staff has been absolutely fantastic. Again, working tirelessly. They're working into the evenings. They're working on the weekends. They're dealing with obviously very serious health issues, which are very hard to talk about. No parent likes getting that news. Students don't like knowing that they're not going to be able to be in sports, be in school, et cetera, for a certain period of time. So they're dealing with a lot of tough information. But again, they've been fantastic. They've had wonderful leadership from Jackie Davis. Jackie is functioning this year as our nursing coordinator for the district. I jokingly give her a hard time just about every day, but any day that she has cases, I give her a grade for that day. And as she always says, that as long as whatever her grade is, as long as it's a Judy Goslin, whatever it is, be it a B, she'll take it, because Judy Goslin, as many of you know, is a beloved 30-year veteran of the Grafton Public Schools, and notoriously fantastic math teacher and tough grader. So any grade from her was well earned, and Jackie has certainly earned any great grade that she gets. Again, this team has been second to none. Really, really fantastic. In terms of positive news, very positive news for us is the return of all of our, or most of our K-1 students. We still will have about 60 students in the group of 450 kindergarten and first graders, about 60, just over that, are in Remote Learning Academy and are planning to stay with Remote Learning Academy for the remainder of the year. That leaves about 390 students that, as of yesterday, we brought back full time. A huge thank you goes out to the leadership at North Grafton Elementary School and South Grafton Elementary School. We have Doreen Parker and Nicole McDonald, who filled in for her when she was out at South Grafton, and Julie Flynn over at North, along with all of the staff. Our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our specialists. A lot of work has gone into preparedness to bring kids back. We have done a lot of shifting. We've shifted our hybrid staff now to in-person, opened up 7 classrooms. And in doing so, we've got a lot of change. Parents have been fantastic with that. It's not easy by any means that we now need to shift people around. There was no way to do it any other way, but that's still hard. The kids are going to roll with it beautifully. The parents will as well, but that's a lot of change in a very tough year, and I'm thankful for the patience and understanding around that. And as I already mentioned, we are going to maintain the RLA for the remainder of the year. These were a few of the photos from Monday. No exciting news category. I'm excited to announce the creation of a new title for Kristen Gasper. This is very long overdue. If you know Kristen Gasper, you know that she is just a phenomenal person and a phenomenal employee for the Grafton Public Schools. The new title of Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Operations is long overdue, and it captures the scope of what she does day in and day out. So Kristen, with some assistance, has a huge job in human resources. We have 575 employees managing contracts, all the benefits, our payroll system, the countless schedules that need to be modified, especially this year, oversees the training and recruitment of our staff and our substitutes, which is a massive job in and of itself this year. Does all the hiring, deals with our legal issues in partnership with myself and obviously legal counsel, plays a key leadership role in the evaluation system and helping to boost the performance of all staff. Along with all of that, she already is my right hand with basically anything that's outside of curriculum and instruction, which is really Tracy's main focus, which is huge in and of itself. Anything outside of that, and it can include certainly curriculum teaching, there's certainly overlap there, but anything with building operations, program assessment, and improvement, Kristen Gasper has been and will be my right hand. The degree of her value in the Grafton Public Schools is truly immeasurable. It's phenomenal. So I will be updating her or that job description, and when I'll aim to do it by the 23rd. I'm not sure I'll have it done by then, but as soon as it's done, I will bring that to the school committee for consideration and eventually for approval of the new job description. So congratulations to Kristen. In terms of planning, I've shown this slide numerous times. This is something that we're always focused on. We're keenly aware of what's going to be a building increased desire to return to in-person. We're going to eventually have the vaccine, the weather's going to get better. We're going to turn the corner eventually. We're going to see a continued decrease in cases, hopefully. And there's going to be more of a push to return to full in-person learning. The challenge is getting as ready for that as possible. What's going to limit, we can't just do it, even if we're prepared to do it. We can't do it as things stand now in grades 2 through 12 until space limitations are basically lessened or erased. We need those changes in the distancing requirements in the schools and definitely on the buses which I talked about a little bit earlier. We need those to be reduced in order for us to move ahead. We want to be as ready as we can possibly be for that to happen. And that's what we're working in. There isn't a day goes by that we're not working on that. The shift in K1 is going to help us tremendously, not only in all the work that's gone into making this shift happen, where now we've been able to kind of kick the tires on that process, what worked, what didn't work in terms of communication planning, staffing, all of those. There were many pieces. So that's a good trial run for us. We've had one day of the K1. We're going to obviously get to see how that works for the remainder of this week and then after the vacation, in terms of what's working in terms of space, in terms of spacing around lunches where you have to have the 6 feet as opposed to at least 3 feet. So we've got a lot to learn, but we're doing a great deal to get as ready as possible for 2 through 12 to eventually return full in person. We're hopeful that's this year, but right now that's purely speculation. All right, good old snow days. I got a lot of questions today about jumping to remote. I'm going to talk about it in a very general sense, but I can answer questions that are specific as people like. Our model is built to maximize in-person learning. I would put our general model up against any district in the state. The majority of districts have much more asynchronous and remote participation than we do. So early on, we prioritize that as being like a core value in terms of this strange and difficult year, was to maximize in-person and synchronous learning. I think our staff has done absolutely fantastic in making that happen. So we're built for that. Many districts aren't built for that. They're actually built to be predominantly remote. So on a snow day, if they choose to, they can switch to remote. That's really pretty easy for them to do. Again, we're not built for that. It would be like having a race car that's built to run in the Indianapolis 500. It snows and somebody says, oh, let's not race it today. Let's go off-roading. I can assure you that wouldn't go well. It's a lot like what we're facing. It's not as easy as just walking over and hitting a switch and we can move to all remote. In some areas of the district, it's certainly easier than others. The high school, by and large, would be really pretty easy. Certainly when we look at the whole district, that would be the easiest with well-established one-to-one. Their specialized programs there's simply more independence with those students who do have specialized needs. There's much more independence than you would find at early elementary, for example. As a district, we need to make that decision as one. We can't have 9-12 do one thing, 7-8 do another. All kinds of contractual issues come up if that were to happen, and that's why it doesn't happen. So we've certainly looked at remote as an option. We've had, I think this was our 4th snow day today, but certainly I worry about snow days all the time. If we ever had, a blizzard or what have you, we've certainly worked on putting plans together. If we just had to go that route, how would we do it? There are many challenges with that. Some people understand, some people don't really think of, and I get it. If I wasn't the superintendent, I'd probably be thinking about my kids and my road and my car and my commute. I get that. When we think of it as a district, we can't think that way. Instead of thinking about the walk from the bus stop or that one bus ride, we've got to think about 2-hour commutes with 18 12-ton buses driving around town and student drivers. It's not like I can, if we're in school, we can't just have early release and just go early. Parents need a lot of time to plan for that. So it's more challenging than many people think it is. Planning time to go to remote, it takes a lot. Unless you're built to be a remote district, that's a real challenge, and I can talk more about that in a second. And that reality piece is big picture, it's really challenging. And then with every given storm, there are other realities. If you look at just today, I didn't go into this, but yesterday, so we have to, whatever we do, we've got to do it as a district. We had we had 390 kindergarten and first graders come back to full in person. So we changed teachers. They now have different kids in their classes. We basically restarted in a very positive way, but a complete restart yesterday. So these kids, these 390 kids, have been with their new teacher in many cases for 6 hours, new peers, new classroom, new everything. So on day 2, we're going to take 390 kids with teachers who just started over and have had 6 hours with these kids and go all remote. I don't see that as remotely feasible. That would be that just wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be equitable. It wouldn't be productive. Nightmare is probably a little strong, but I think the teachers, that might be a word that comes up. So that's a reality. And this is just today, and I'm only using it because I get so many complaints. That's just an insight into today. Different days, every day that we're faced with snow, ice, et cetera, brings different challenges. That was just today. We also have kids. We have a few hundred kids in cohort C. That's a great thing. I know I would put us up against what we do up against any district. We have been able, with the model that we've created, to have more than any district I know of, more students go back full time. So instead of going 1 week on, 1 week off, the great majority have special needs, and they attend school every day in person, which is fantastic. It's needed, great. Those teachers, their schedules, et cetera, are built for that. So they don't use every other week. They're not using a device to go remotely. They haven't had months and months, half a year plus of getting used to hybrid. They've had none of that. And that's a good thing for us. Asking hundreds of students, many of whom have 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 paraprofessional support to support their learning, to ask those students and their teacher, based on snow, to jump to a kind of fictional remote day just isn't feasible for us. It's not fair to those kids. Those kids also, many of them, we've done a really good job putting out devices. We've built up 1-to-1 in terms of devices, grades 6 through 12. We're in really good shape, 6 through 12. We've got about 400 devices out to, and that's laptops, Chromebooks, out to K1 students. Those devices, and that's all we have, many of which have to be shared within families. I mean, it's not a 1-to-1 by any means, but we've done our very best to put 400 devices out there. Those are for the students currently in hybrid. Our cohort C students, many of whom don't have devices at home, they don't have 1-to-1. They don't have devices that we've put out through hybrid. So many of those students, many, dozens and dozens, won't have access to a device, never mind any experience with online learning, aside from what they had last spring. And teachers who would be asked to shift all of a sudden to 6 hours of high quality remote instruction. And the students, for the most part, aren't going to have any supports except what they might be able to get at home. We also have issues of connectivity. We have given out we've lent out and set up remote learning, remote access points for kids through Kajit. They are bare bones at best. I've used them. I've brought them home just to try them. It's okay. It's at best okay. And it's the best we can do. And we're thrilled to be able to do it. But we have a lot of students in the group that I just talked about who aren't normally hybrid, who don't have that connectivity. They just don't have that. We're not going to be able to, all of a sudden, it's going to snow in 3 days. and be able to set them up with connectivity at their house to have wireless. And then my last main point is around childcare. It would be wonderful if every student had a parent who was home with them on a given snow day, and they had hot cocoa and wireless, and just things were grand. Unfortunately, that's not a case for many of our students. And it's especially challenging for our youngest students because they need a lot of assistance. I think any of the RLA parents will tell you, especially if our younger students, that it's hard. It's hard to do a real full day of meaningful remote instruction or learning. They need assistance. Many students who we have are in a one-parent household or a household with two parents who work, and they don't have somebody there. They're either left with an older sibling, or they go with 3 other kids to a friend's house or to grandma down the street, or whomever it is. And they have a few kids all at once on a snow day, trying to basically survive the day, never mind somehow help them figure out what remote learning is, how it works, and meaningfully assist them throughout the day. Those are big challenges. A key driver in my decision-making is around quality. Like if we're gonna offer something, it needs to be, in my mind, it needs to be a quality product, if you will. And it needs to be meaningful to everybody. We can't leave out a few hundred kids just because it doesn't work for them and they'll figure it out. That's not reality. So that was probably a longer explanation than you ever wanted about my thinking around snow days, but that's what I've got. And with that, I can take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jay. I'm sure that people really appreciated that thorough explanation, along with such wonderful news that you started with. I'll pass it over for some questions from the committee. Jen.
Not so much question, but thank you for addressing the snow day. I'm sure everyone appreciates it, and that should be done for, maybe that's not the last snow day, but I don't think anyone will ask anymore, hopefully. But thank you for addressing it. You mentioned maybe the letter. I don't know if you consider going to a weekly update, maybe. You know, if you don't want to inundate so much, but maybe just an option. I do like the updates.
I'm certainly happy to do anything. Yeah, I mean, I could try it weekly.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I can try that. And update the dashboard, obviously daily, which we do anyhow.
I have a question while people are thinking. I think you did an amazing job on the snow day and really went above and beyond, but I have a couple questions that I've heard. There seems to be this rumor that we can't go past June 25th. Can you address that?
Yeah.
Because I think that was fueling some of the concern. I think we're at what, June 23rd, June 23rd today. So I think that was, I think people think, I don't know what happens on June 25th.
In this, I know everybody forgets, and it's all fine. I'm sure if I wasn't the superintendent, I'd be doing the same thing. But once you hit 4 or 5 days, and we typically we've averaged about 6.
We do 6.
But anyhow, usually at 4 or 5, that's when you get this shift to people tend to want to throw out just different options, and they panic a little bit about June, and automatically, you know, and it might happen. Who knows? But every June is 120 degrees, and oh my gosh, we're all going to be passing out. It may happen. We just don't know. The 25th, any of those dates, any of that is purely a rumor, and it comes up all the time. The July 1st is a rumor as well, but it does have some substance to it. So it's a real mess. If you have to go 180 days in a typical year. This year, because of the late start, DESE moved that back to 170 days. So let's just talk about a normal year. With 180 days, you have to get to 180. If you don't want to, as a district, you definitely don't want to go into July because you move into the next fiscal year. complete mess. Districts have done it, but you want to avoid that. Every district wants to avoid that. But that's why sometimes when districts run into issues, usually it's not around snow. It's that they had maybe some big building projects and went really behind schedule and they had a really late start to the school year. They had just a big outbreak in a normal year of like the flu and they had to shut down for a week or something. So it usually takes an event that's pretty unique. That said, you'll occasionally hear about districts that are facing that July 1 problem, and they either go into July, or most often what you see happen is they work something out with the state whereby they go on Saturdays, they'll do an extra hour every day after school, they'll go during an April break or a February break. That's what they do. The most common is probably the April break, but I've definitely seen districts that have had to do both of those other options. But unless it's waived, and I don't know of an instance where a district's received a waiver off the 180, you're going 180. Right now, we're up to I think it's the 23rd. Usually people know better than I do, which is a Wednesday, half day.
Thank you. Very thorough answer. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and that, I think you brought up a good question. I mean, hopefully we'll be done soon with the snow, but then we can reconvene and we can talk about April break or whatever. We'll get it on the agenda and we'll talk about it if needed. Amy.
Yeah, so
welcome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So one of the things that has always been a challenge is again tracking that date. People want to know, parents want to know, when is the last day of school? I get that question every day now. Somebody asked it in the Q&A. So it is the 23rd, and every time we have a snow day, I go into my Google Calendar and I move the last day of school over one. I'm sure everybody on the committee does it that way too. But that's how parents can track it, unless, Jay, if you wanted to start putting it in the emails when you do the emails. I don't know if that's even possible to help people track it, especially this year, because I feel like people want to go on a vacation as soon as they possibly can, and leave town.
Me too.
We all, right?
Yeah,
we all do.
That.
When is the last day my kid absolutely has to be in school because I'm out of here? I think is what's happening, and I'm seeing that percolation happen.
Oh, right, and obviously with great reason. I get it. I get it. Yeah, we can definitely let me think about how to best do that. But as long as I'll ask Leo Fanti in the office, she can figure out a way we can probably move it on the calendar. We can put something on the website. We can add it to emails. That's pretty easy.
Yeah. We can have Kristen do it.
I've got big plans for Kristen.
Jay, I mean, I have more to talk about besides the snow days, but I have one more question that I've been asked a few times and I haven't been able to answer. So with the makeup days, so I think we're evenly split on cohorts, but I could be wrong. I actually do not track the last day of school, Amy. I just figure they'll stop going at some point. But are we going to make up the cohorts that missed? So this week's cohort B, last week was cohort A. How does that work at the end? Or are we just going to tack on and it's going to, and I've lost track on who was there last? Does that cohort just continue, or haven't you thought of that yet?
I haven't thought about it. I will though, and I'll include it whenever a week or two, we'll put out the next newsletter and I'll actually run whatever the plan is. I'll run it by the school committee first on the 23rd, assuming everybody's good with whatever we come up with. I'll put it out to everybody. How's that?
Thank you. That sounds great. Thank you. Any other question? I'll keep talking. And I just want to congratulate Kristen Gasper. I think it is a well-deserved shift. I think we are very fortunate to have you in this district. It's been a pleasure working with you over the years. I appreciate all your work that you have done with the personnel. You are an incredible resource, and it is nice to see you being recognized this way. So thank you for all that you do. And I also I was really glad to see you highlight the nurses, Jay. So thank you for doing that.
They are
revealing too much, I got a call from a nurse. It was a Friday night at 8:30, and I hung up with her, and I thought, it is Friday night at 8:30. I'm sitting at my table doing a puzzle, unwinding, and
Yeah.
she has a list of calls she's making that are not pleasant. And I think they've been doing that I know they've been doing that all year. So thank you. Any other questions, comments? Excellent presentation. So thank you, Jay. And thanks for that. I'll do a clip of your snow day so and we can post that. I think it's about an hour, so that'll be good. That'll be good for people to watch.
People really want to know. I mean, they can always email and ask, and I'll tell them. But
I mean, I think now you can just play the clip. I mean, so no, I think it would be helpful to just have that, and we'll have it so I can clip it tomorrow. Great. What is next? Next is future agenda schedule planning. Next on our agenda, we have, I think in 2 weeks, we'll obviously have the budget hearing that's scheduled for 6:30. That is when we invite the public and they can come and comment about the budget. Haven't thoroughly thought about how we'll do that, but what I'm guessing is we'll do a raise hand feature. I'll call you, I'll make you a participant, and you can speak for a certain amount of time, and then you can return to an audience member. So we'll hear your concerns. We won't address them during the public hearing. And then we also have Bob Wall is going to come back.
right, Bob Wall and Nicole McDonald.
And Nicole, great, terrific. Liz.
Laura, I had a question about that. Just some people had asked me whether half an hour was enough. Obviously, you guys have been through these hearings before. Is that pretty much in line with how it's
I'll
going?
tell you, I hate to be that person, but I've been doing this for 7 years. Last year was the only time anybody ever came. We used to have them be 15 minutes, so we've doubled the time. And I'll tell you what, I would never, if we need to start a little later, if somebody wants to speak, we would never turn them away. But I think, I don't know, I think our budget this year, we'll talk about it in a little bit. I would expect that hopefully people would not be too upset or something, but yeah.
Because we have a lot more attendees because it's virtual this year, so it did, maybe we don't really know what to expect, but it sounds like you've doubled it, and we'll go over if we need to. So that's
absolutely, yeah, we would never turn away somebody who has a wanted to speak at the hearing, of course. So anything else, Liz?
I didn't see in the document that's in our folder any talk at future meetings about fees for next year. I wondered if we needed to revisit that.
So I was thinking about that today. So that should come, I would think, in our budget. So we've already voted that we're okay with fees. So typically I think we would look at the budget and see how we needed to make that up and then discuss it from there. I don't know, or we can have another discussion about fees. I don't know if we need to. Jay, I'm kind of looking at you and you don't know that.
All right.
At my
yeah, I was going to at least touch on it when we talk about the budget. I built in, or Anita and I built into the budget the assumption that we would have your typical transportation fees. We have not built in at this point athletic fees. I mean, everything in the budget right now is so speculative. Anyhow, we can just add to the speculation, but we didn't add it because I think we're going to move ahead with fall 2 in 2 weeks, but we don't really even know if we're going to have all the sports and like track in fall 2 in 2 weeks, never mind what we're going to have in September. And we'd have to start collecting money pretty soon if that's the idea. Like committing to that before we know what we're going to have and what it's going to look like could be a challenge.
Yep, Liz, you can go.
Yeah, so as I understand where things stand right now with respect to fees is that in, I think it was it March of 2020, the school committee voted to impose athletic fees and to keep, I think it was just the vote on the athletic fees, if I recall correctly. And then this year we had a different vote for this academic year to waive those fees, waive the bus fees as well. But that just applied to this year. So if we are going to impose athletic fees for next year, I think that's the situation that we're in. If we're going to look at that again, if the rest of the committee wants to talk about that and waive it again or consider that, I think that should be a discussion. That should be something that we talk about. Maybe it's not the right time to have it just yet. I was thinking we should have that around the same time we're having the budget discussions, but with all the unknowns, perhaps not. I don't know. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about it.
Yeah, Amy?
Yeah, so we did suspend those fees for this academic year, which means that they're still in place in theory, beginning August of this year, unless we were to vote again to suspend them for some reason. I agree. I've been looking around and, other schools they're not even really talking about this yet. It's just a little early and speculative. I mean, we could go back to school in the fall and still have sports be suspended. That's a reality that could happen. So the other thing is that I believe the athletic director is the one that has to set the fees. We're not going to vote on, we're either going to not do anything or we're going to vote to suspend the fees again, is my understanding. We will have fees. We do not set the fees. So I think it's odd because we vote on the school lunch price, right? Which is very odd, but I guess that's a contract. Maybe that's why. So we don't have to do anything right now. And it's not, I mean, unless we're really surprised by what the athletic director comes up with, it's really not going to be enough to impact the budget that much. I think the low end was going to be 65,000. I kind of feel like I love talking about this stuff, but I think that we probably have a lot of other things that we'll be dealing with before we get there. I do think it's probably worth mentioning to the athletic director that that's something that we're looking for before the end of the school year, just so we know what the expectation will be. And then if we vote to suspend them, even if it's as late as July 1, then that's what we do. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, Amy, I would agree with you. We don't vote every year on the fee for the school bus. So the athletic fee was new. So we said that we would implement fees. So unless people want to have, I mean, exactly, I think exactly what you said. And I would recommend we hold off a little bit on it. And yeah. Liz.
Can I just ask, I don't want us to get in a position like we were kind of in last year with the bus fees where we were sort of backed into a corner with regard to the timing where it got kind of late and that became another reason to vote to suspend them. So Dr. Cummings, when are those fees, if we do have sports in the fall and let's say we're moving forward as is, do you know when those are typically assessed on the students, just so we know when is sort of our deadline for making a decision?
I'd have to ask other districts and find out.
Okay, it's probably sometime in the summer though, right?
Yeah, I would think early summer would be the due date. So you'd give yourself some cushion to chase down anybody who's late, etc.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Not June 30th, like the bus fees?
Correct.
Okay.
Amy?
Yeah, I think the other thing to note here is that this is a little bit different from the transportation fees in that these fees will be assessed throughout the year. There needs to be a schedule established and set up, and that was something that was not here. There will be a schedule. Fall sports kids, it'll be due by sometime in August. The next season will be due by sometime in, I don't know, November, October. I don't know these things. So it is going to be a little bit different. And I think that we need to make sure that the staff are aware that they're going to need to work that out. And that's going to be on Dr. Cummings and his leadership. He's thrilled, I'm sure.
No, yeah.
Eventually it needs to move out of the school committee. I guess the question is if there's a strong majority there of this board that wants to eliminate athletic fees, and then we could have another discussion about it.
I think we can't really have that discussion without it.
Being on the agenda, right? Right.
Yeah.
So if there's a philosophy change, I suppose we could bring it up again. So is that what you're asking, to have another discussion, Liz, on fees, or are we comfortable with how we've left it, that we can revisit and have the leadership team work and I guess maybe make a recommendation to the committee? I'm still fuzzy on this.
Yeah, I think what I had envisioned could possibly result in having to vote on this twice in the next few months. So I would say it seems like the best course would be to wait.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Next up, we have an approval of 2 minutes. Take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from January 12th, 2021 as presented, as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Aye.
Rahul Roti,
Alrighty, I.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carried 5-0. Our next group of minutes, or set of minutes, I guess it is.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from January 26th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Amy?
I have a couple of ticky things that I'd like to send over, but one thing that changes the meaning that I'd like to have changed is on page 5. I'm quoted as saying districts can't apply for any more ESSER funding. It is can apply.
Oh,
So that's the only thing that changes meaning. The other 2 things are just grammatical things that I'd just like to send over. I don't know who I could send them to, but I literally read them right before the meeting.
you can send them over to me and I'll send them over to Debbie. How's that?
Awesome.
All right.
Do I need to make a new motion?
I think you can amend your motion.
All right. I make a motion to approve the minutes from, sorry, I lost the date.
The 26th.
January 26th, 2021 with the amendments.
Second.
All right. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the amended agenda? Amended, oh my God, just lost my total words. Amended motion. All right. This will be a roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Spinney, aye.
Rahul Roti,
Alrighty, I.
and Laura Often, aye. Motion carried. Thank you. And then just before we go to the financial report, James and Annabelle, we're about to hit 9. Do you guys have a update for us? And then you can go. James?
The only thing I can think of is this week and next week we're in school, student council selling candy grams, which I'm glad we were able to do because I didn't think we'd be able to give out candy, but the nurse said it was okay, so that's been going well.
That's awesome. And is that a fundraiser?
Yeah, it's a fundraiser for student council.
Nice. Are you going to send a bunch to Glen Coco? Thank you, Amy. Do you know who? You don't know who that is?
I don't know who that is.
All right. We'll talk after. Annabelle, any updates?
Nope, none for me.
All right. Well, thank you both. Have a great winter break, and we'll see you after that. Thank you for joining us. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
I guess.
I made that joke at home, and it also didn't go over well. So I was trying it out again. I need to know my audience. All right. And I'm going to turn it over to Jay and Anita for a budget.
Right. All right, I am going to just basically run through, I don't know, 10 slides. I'll try to move right along. Most of these won't be totally new to you, and feel free to cut me off or wait to the end and we can answer any questions. So following the tri-committee meeting between the school committee, the board of select board and finance committee, we received an additional $290,000, bringing that number to $39.7 million for FY22. We obviously still have just a ton of unknowns. This has been clearly it's been the most difficult budget to plan for that we've ever faced. No question about it. No big surprise there. That COVID-19 timing is huge for us. What that impact is going to be, especially around any kind of remediation, anything atypical that we're going to have to provide next year that we don't have even this year. Those unknowns are just a very big variable. Enrollment for us hasn't been, I don't foresee that being a big issue. So I expect that to remain relatively stable and as expected. And then going back to the timing and the impact, what are the staffing needs going to be? Earlier in the meeting, I was highlighting the great work of our nursing staff. We've obviously done a lot of hiring for all of the COVID-related needs that we have. I anticipate the COVID-based needs diminishing. I don't know if they're going to go away entirely. Are we going to need half of that staff that was new this year? A third of that staff? We just don't know. But once we start talking about numbers of new staff, you'll see that we're going to talk about adding 3 positions. That could be gobbled up by just nursing needs alone, potentially. That certainly extends to academic needs, social emotional needs. So that's where it gets really, really complex. We don't know what we're going to get in terms of grants. That's always kind of a wait and see. Every year we wait until the summer and we get entitlement grants, usually around $850,000. We don't know what the impact of everything going on is going to have on those grants. I'd expect school choice, assuming that's approved by the school committee for next year. I would expect that to remain very stable. We're one of the only districts I know of that hasn't seen students leave through school choice to go elsewhere, or if they're in the school choice program, pull out. Our retention rate has been almost 100%, and we receive calls every single day about potentially joining the Grafton Public Schools through choice. And then we talked about fees. We've built in preliminary busing fees. If the restrictions on the buses are still in place in the fall, that's obviously going to have an impact on ridership and fees. If we're in the same boat, we're going to be trying to get kids to take the bus, not add fees, which might prohibit ridership. So we just don't know. We don't know if we're going to get any additional federal funding. There's been a lot of talk of it. Anita and I are very optimistic that we will receive it. But at this point, with the new administration, we don't know about new funding coming up for the spring or beyond. And then driving everything is student needs in 21, 22. And we're doing a lot of guesswork around what those needs are going to be. We've talked about remediation and support in the area of mathematics and reading in particular, and then support in terms of counseling in addition to what we have right now. Those 3 things jump out, but we certainly could have more needs than that. We're sure to. In terms of timing for the budget, now through February 23rd, we're going to be updating the FY22 budget book. I've shared with you the draft that we have that covers us through December. Not much has really changed other than we've got the influx of that 290,000. So we can put back into the budget some of the things that we would have had to reduce without that 290,000. We're not going to be able to put everything back, but most of it we will be able to. So we're going to work on that. Our goal was today. Our new goal is to have it done or have it updated by Friday and make that public. The current book is public on the website, but make that public, share it with the school committee, give everybody, a couple weeks to look at it before we talk about it more on the 23rd. When we were talking about the budget hearing, this is going to be a budget that we're going to have to talk about like every other week. We formally have to have at least one budget hearing, but in practice, the committee could decide to have kind of an open budget hearing type format, every other meeting or, every third meeting, what have you. We can have more than one. It doesn't have to be a one-shot deal because what goes before you on the 23rd is it's impossible for that to be a finalized budget. There is a 0% chance of that happening. And whatever number is voted on as just a bottom line number by the committee. It's not whatever we put into that budget in terms of our best thinking about what we spend the money on. It's absolutely going to be modified between spring and the fall next year. It's guaranteed. So we're not locked by when that vote does come, hopefully on the 23rd. That only approves us being okay with that number. Even that bottom line number could change, hopefully for the better, if we were to get more money into the town through state or federal funding. If that did happen, that would be a great thing, and that bottom line number could change. But it doesn't change. It doesn't have any impact on the allocation. March 24th, school committee meets with the finance committee to review the budget. And then at some point in the spring, the state budget for 22 will be finalized, hopefully. And then in May or June, we'll have a town meeting and the budget will be voted on at town meeting. We've gone over all the different assumptions. This long list is only a fraction of the big picture list of all the different assumptions we're going to have to make. We were just earlier talking about athletics. They're not on there. We're going to have to make guesses as to what athletics are going to look like. And then kind of backwards plan, do we have fees in there? So it's really complex. It feels like we're trying to build something, on a foundation of like quicksand or sand. It's just constantly moving. In general sense, we're planning to be back to school as usual, if you will, in terms of all the kids being back full-time in person next year. That's the big picture assumption that we're basing everything off of. But any of these pieces can change. Any of these pieces that do change impact the whole, and that's really trying for us. So with the additional 290,000, that's going to allow us to realize the 3 additional positions that we were planning on for FY22. We never delineated exactly what those positions would be. So when we set up for the override, we talked about 3 positions. We talked about things that we'd like to have, but we never were very specific in what exactly they'd be. Again, early thinking is we're going to need at least 1 position for math, 1 for literacy, and 1 around counseling, especially at the elementary level. Are we going to need more than 3 positions? Yes. I mean, to really respond to any and all setbacks encountered since last March, of course, 1 position for math alone over the scope of an entire district obviously would be minimal in terms of impact. We are very hopeful that federal funding will allow for more staffing around these pieces. Obviously, every district in the nation is going to be faced with the same challenges that we're facing. We've built in some basic contractual increases across the 5 bargaining units for FY22. Right now, we have 0 additional paraprofessionals built in. That certainly could change. Right now, we meet weekly to go through special education costs, paraprofessionals, out of district, et cetera. We're trending in a very positive way right now, but that could certainly change. It's February. We talked about projected enrollment. We're going to lock that in. We actually worked on that today, and we're going to base our staffing off of those numbers. And the same with supplies. Our supplies isn't really a big number in the grand scheme of things, but that goes back to a formula that's based off of number of students at the different levels. So we're going to lock that in. That's what we worked on in part today. We'll set our supply lines and be meeting again with principals to review those allocations, make sure that's going to work for them for FY22. So those are some of the many pieces that we have in motion right now. We've talked about all the variables. Most of these things I've already touched on. We want to apply our best thinking while we develop FY22, but we still need flexibility to shift as needed. Again, the hope and the ideal is that additional federal monies will give us that flexibility that without them, we really don't have. We're going to, with just 3 positions, we don't have much flexibility. And that's going to be a real challenge. As I mentioned earlier, just nursing, for example, could take up those 3 positions in the blink of an eye without additional federal monies. And then finally, at some point, but right now it's scheduled for the 23rd, the school committee is going to be asked to vote on, again, that bottom line number. That's not how it will reflect our best thinking in terms of how funds will be utilized, but we're not locked in by any means. And as we've discussed, we do need to, before that vote, at least have one budget hearing that would precede that vote. And that's what we have for tonight. I can take whatever questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Amy. Did I not see you?
No, I had my hand up before the thing came up. So I apologize if this gets too in the weeds, Jay, just tell me, no.
Sure.
So we've talked before about students who've left the district this year to pursue opportunities either with full online school or go to private school. And I know there aren't many, but what is the process like, and what is the time frame for them basically transferring back into the district, assuming that they want to? How will you know if all of them are coming back or not? Like, do you have any sense of how that works?
We don't yet. You're in the weeds, but not too far in the weeds. What we'll most likely do, we've talked about this, is putting out, we have the contact information for those people. And what we've done in the past is put out a very simple survey that doesn't have to be, nobody's obliged to answer, but most people do. They just want to know, for planning purposes, especially this year, if you are planning on coming back to Grafton Public Schools, can you give us a heads up? And people have been historically fantastic with that. So that's our plan. I don't know when we'll actually do that, but that's the tack that we would take. Okay, so here's another question. How do you project what the kindergarten enrollment is going to be? Like, we have a preschool program, but that's not all of them. Right. Where do you get the information to project that? Because again, you don't know yet. No, we don't know. We use 2 things. One is just when we look at the prior 3 years, it gives us a pretty good indication, and it's been pretty close. This year, anything could happen. We take the 3-year and we combine that with, remember we had NESDEC come in a couple of years ago. They do a study for us. Part of one of their many components of that study is just that, how many kids of kindergarten age they expect for the coming year. So between the 2 things, it's been pretty accurate. Anything could happen this year. So That's probably out of all the pieces, that's, well, you know this from when we talk about school choice, is it is speculative. That's the one, like, we know pretty much down to the kid, just about first grade into second, third into fourth, kindergarten. It's a bit of a guessing game. It really is. And we've
That's not a faucet you can turn off and say no more.
Right. Even sometimes in August. I mean, not every August we get, there's that little, it's not a total panic, but in the back of our minds, we may have to shift staff. If kids just start showing up in August, you have to be able to respond. And we actually did that. I think it was last year. We had to make some moves, and we covered it, and we had good class sizes, and it worked. Do I wish they'd all registered in June? Of course. And this year, obviously everything's so weird that wouldn't shock us.
All right, one more and then I'm done, I promise. Did I hear that we did not receive money for disability ADA compliance? We
Yeah,
did not
so we
receive
put
that
in
grant?
with assistance from the Disability Commission in town. Roger Trahan in particular was super helpful with putting the grant together with me. We put in 2 grants. One was a planning grant to have a professional entity come in and do an ADA assessment for the district. The town received this, but the schools weren't included maybe 2 or 3 years back. So same exact thing, but we were looking to do it on the school end. So that was one grant. And then we had a project grant, different pool of money. And that was to become a full project at South Grafton Elementary School for the paved playground area and the playground equipment to become fully ADA accessible. So we put in 2 full grants, and we didn't get either. Roger was very optimistic, which I appreciate, and said that the town, when they put in theirs the first time, actually got rejected as well. It was only approved on the second time. So we've got the projects in hand. They'd have to be updated a little bit whenever, I'm guessing in the next year, they'll offer it again. We'll resubmit and keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you. That's disappointing, but thank you for the effort anyway.
Yeah, there were a lot of, I think it was maybe, I probably don't have this perfect, but it was like they had $1 million between the 2 pots, and I think like 230 districts put in. It was very popular and very, very competitive this year.
Liz.
Dr. Cummings, I was wondering if you could walk us through a couple of things. First of all, when the school committee was first presented with the preliminary budget for this year, I know that was after a conversation that you had with the interim town administrator, and the result of that was that we came back with the position that, given what that assistant town administrator had allocated to the school, we were going to end up with a sort of a deficit of, I think it was $586,000 or something like that. And then and then we had the TRICOM committee meeting where we were talking about $300,000 that we could forget this year because those were allocated to technology expenses. So really we only needed I think was it 286 or something? Or
yeah, ballpark, right.
Could you walk us through that transition from 590,000 to down to 290,000 and how that 300,000 in technology expenses was considered not needed for this year, and is that number still the number that
it won't be a full 300,000 in terms of all coming from tech. We do have monies, like every year we invest in software and we invest in hardware in terms of technology. Thanks to COVID monies over the past 7 months, we've been able to invest years worth in terms of hardware and software, which that helps us. It's not going to get us to the full 300,000 because we're going to have to still have funds, and this is what we're wrestling now. We're still going to have funds in technology, be it software, be it hardware, that will be above and beyond hardware in terms of Chromebooks, MacBooks, desktops. One example, just maybe a couple weeks ago, we found out we're going to need a new core switch at the high school, kind of the heart, for lack of a better understanding, the heart of our tech infrastructure for the entire district out of the high school. That switch is going to be conservatively, in the work that will go into it, about $80,000. So we're going to need monies for the things that come up kind of behind the scenes, behind the walls, et cetera, for technology. So what Anita and I are trying to figure out is exactly what that number is going to be. And then if we're not going to take it out of tech, where is that money going to come from? And those are the details that are going to be in the updated book that we need. That's what we were working on today, and simply haven't finalized it. Right now, we've got the SRO still on that budget of roughly 55,000, for example. We still have it on the town side. My thinking is I'm going to wait until Evan Broussard starts on, I think it's the 22nd, and have a discussion in terms of that position. Is that going to be funded going forward through the schools? Will it be funded? Is it going to be full-time? Is it going to be funded through the municipal side? Is that going to be a shared cost? That's just one example. So we're working on figuring out what we do need for tech. We know there's automatically some savings in there, quite significant, but say it's 100,000. What are we going to do, whether it's reduce, not spend as much on smaller capital projects? Earlier, we had taken out a certain percentage for supplies. That's what we're going to figure out, hopefully before Friday.
Okay. Yeah, I think, a number like that, if we're talking another 100,000 that might need to be added before we talk about cutting other areas, it'd be useful to know what we're looking at, because in our TRICOM meeting, the other committees were pretty amenable to finding funding for that 286 delta that we were looking for. So as the conversation continues, I know things, I understand this is going to change and evolve. So it'd be good to know when
Yeah, that's our biggest area of focus right now.
Yeah. The other thing I was wondering, you said when you were presenting, when you were talking about the 290,000 figure, you said we can't put everything back, but we can put a lot back. So was there something specific that you left out of the budget
So things that, for example, when we had the roughly 600,000 that we were reducing, and again, it's reducing not from what we have today, it was from the budget that pre-COVID, we were set up to receive with the successful override. So in a great fantasy world, it's from those monies. So it's not a decrease from like existing things. In that we had reduced, like the SRO position, we had taken out of our budget and that went over to the municipal. We had taken 2 out of the 3 positions out. We put those back. We had, this is off the top of my head, but say 10,000 district-wide supplies. We had 30 or 35,000 reduction in what we had hoped to have for smaller capital projects. A big chunk of that was obviously the technology. So it was all the things. I don't have that list in front of me, but we had a reduction list that got us to 600. It's those things. If we don't do that full 300,000 for tech, something, be it those things that were on the list, like the capital, like, what was the other thing? Sorry, the supplies.
Mhm.
If not those things, we've got to adjust somewhere else. We've got to get to that bottom line number of 39.7.
Okay, and I have one final question at this point. You mentioned capital, and so I was wondering if you could walk us through a little bit how we got to the point where we're no longer budgeting from our end the Grafton Middle School HVAC project.
Yeah, I mean, that's bottom line. That's gonna, if that moves forward, that's a townwide project. That's not a standalone. Any project that involves long-term bonding, town meeting approval, et cetera, has to be done in unison with the town administrator and definitely the select board, as well as FinCom
Right.
and CIPC. So we've done, I don't think we've missed a step in kind of the lead up to that. The reality is we've got a temporary TA who is winding down in a couple weeks and a new TA starting. So that project is largely basically on hold. We've put it forth. We believe it's viable. You guys have supported it. I think in a general sense, CIPC, I think, is supporting it, but I can't say that for sure. I presented to them a couple of times with Anita and a few school committee reps. We've done everything that we can do school-wise. But to move forward in that way, we'd have to, the town administrator, who is obviously coming in brand new during COVID, is going to have to get his feet on the ground, which is asking a lot, point blank. But it would have to fit into his and the select boards, like the town thinking in terms of how we want to move forward with projects. Historically, I'm not aware of a project, even though I think this is a fantastic idea. This is unprecedented. We haven't had a project put forth that I'm aware of that would utilize monies that are in the future going to be allocated to the school district. And those monies aren't set in stone. They are received year after year, but they're not guaranteed. A part of those monies to the school district would go to offset the costs so that we wouldn't have a tax increase. We do have a backup plan in place, which I think is very wise, that we would go to school choice funds, revolving funds, if there was something that had to be covered in a given year. But to move forward in terms of bonding and town meeting votes, we need the support of the town administrator and other committees. I don't see a way around it.
So, but best case scenario, if it does go through and it's voted on, but we have the support and it's voted on by the town, we have made accommodations for the school portion of that. That would be,
yeah,
that's in there somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, but that's in a different pot of money. That's not in the FY22 or any future year operating budget. That would be out of capital monies, which aren't captured in here. So typically in the spring, the schools and other departments, after going through the CIPC process, after being, I assume it's approved by the select board, obviously supported by supported by the town administrator, we receive, we've got a list of millions of dollars worth of projects. We find out that we're going to get $300,000 for capital expenses that have all been spelled out. They've all been vetted. They've all been quoted, et cetera. We get those monies in the spring and then we move. But those monies are not a part of the operating budget. The only carryover with an energy project like this is going to be in future years. We use actuals for our energy costs, and those would be reflected in our gas, in our electricity, et cetera, which in those things are part of our operating cost.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I had thought that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
some of our maintenance budget to cover some of those costs rather than coming solely from capital. So thank you for clarifying that.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Jay. We have a warrant.
Okay, I move the committee approve warrant number 33 dated February 11th, 2021 in the amount of $433,854.02.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Jennifer Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Moore, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Spinny, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Aye.
Laura Often, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Terrific. All right, and we have one policy coming for you. It's technically a second reading, but we did make a lot of changes from 2 weeks ago. We met last night, so we didn't get the changes into the drive until today. So if the committee needs more time, we can push it into 2 weeks from now. If not, we can discuss it tonight and go for a second reading.
Laura, do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, if you're ready, that'd be great. So Jen, Amy, Rahul, if you feel you didn't have enough time to adequately review, I totally get it. We do try to get it to you earlier, and we put this up just because we've at least discussed it one other time. So you can let us know after you look at it too. Thanks, Liz.
Okay. So as you recall, this is the policy CBI regarding the evaluation of the superintendent. At our last meeting, we received a suggestion that we look at the MASC policy, and I think we pulled it up during the meeting and thought that that might be positive, and so we decided to review that again in our policy committee meeting. As Laura mentioned, we met last night and we took a look at this policy. We thought it was in pretty good shape, but we wanted to add some more particularity and clarity to the language. So that's what we've done here. You know, I don't want to go through all of these specifically. Hopefully you guys can take a look and let us know if you have any questions or if there's anything in particular that you don't like. But basically we wanted to make sure that this captures the purpose behind the evaluation and the method by which we perform it. There is, I'll slowly scroll down, just tell me if you want me to stop or slow. There is one change that came to our attention after the meeting, so I've highlighted that down here. So I'm proposing that in this forum. I understand that as a practice, the school committee has stopped tabulating numerical scores in their evaluation forms. So I made the further edit after our policy committee meeting to remove that portion of the description of the evaluation process. This also includes, which is not in the MASC policy, the proposed schedule, like we talked about last week, keeping it as we discussed as a recommended schedule with target completion dates. And we did make the changes that that we had put forth in the first reading. I'll leave it to the chair to.
Oh, that's fine. I was just going to say the same. If anybody has any questions about this, not, we can take a motion. or if you feel like you didn't have enough time and want to move it to the next meeting, let us know.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
Have
sorry.
a hand up?
I think we can't see when we have the screen split. I really like this language a lot. I think it accurately depicts how we do it and the fact that it's a collaborative process, that there are parts that are this committee's responsibility, there are parts of the superintendent's responsibility. And I think with the removal of the numerical scores, this policy accurately reflects what it is we strive to do. I really like the schedule at the end. I think that's really helpful. And I would be comfortable voting on this tonight, but I understand if there are others who are not.
Thank you, Amy. Jen, you were about to say something.
I was just gonna make a motion. I'm fine. I read it. It was fine. I like the recommended target dates. I thought that was a good way to put it there. But right. So I make a motion to accept policy CBI evaluation of the superintendent as a second reading.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Spinny, aye.
Rahul Rati,
Already, aye.
and Laura Often, aye. Motion carried. All right, thank you. Thanks everybody for your feedback on that, and thank you, Liz, for your work. Member reports. Amy?
I'm the only one that ever reports.
That's not true. We have lots of
Now
reports.
she's done. We need to give Liz another committee. All right.
You're very busy. She's on policy. She just did her report.
Okay, that's true. All right.
It's a big committee.
So I was late to the meeting because GSE finally presented to the select board tonight. It went really well. We presented the benchmarking report, and so that's going to be posted on the town website very soon. But I'm happy to provide a copy to anybody who would like one. Basically no surprises, but we are kind of stalled right now because we can't be begging either school districts or municipalities or town staff for data at the moment. So we're all just kind of waiting with bated breath to see when we can start up again, basically. Per my duties as secretary, I'm working on our annual report. It is very difficult. I'm embracing the challenge, and I'm finding it very frustrating to write about not this year and only half of last year and then the year before. It's very weird. But I'm having fun going through old meetings and pulling out information. I don't know what the procedure is on that. If I send that to the committee for feedback, I'm running really tight up against the deadline.
Yeah, I don't think the committee in the past has usually reviewed it. In the past, well, Jen, you've done it. You're the only one on the committee who's done it. This is the annual report. It goes in the town annual report, and it's the job of the secretary to do it. So Amy's been working on that. Typically, you can run it by Jay, just maybe as a double check, because it's kind of the voice of the district. But I mean, yeah, if you want to share it, Jen,
No, in the past, I definitely I would send it to Jay. I know, like in the past, like he and Dan made some changes when it came to like the financial update. So that was helpful. And then at the time I sent it to Peter because he was the chair. Just as another pair of eyes.
Yeah, Melissa sent it to me last year, so I reviewed it with Jay. But
all right, well, my deadline is Friday, so I will endeavor to have a draft. And I wanted to ask Liz to look at it for me for grammar.
I was going to say, you don't want me to review it because I'll just take out all your.
No, you can't take out my Oxford commas. They stay. If you can't behave, I won't send it to you.
I would be happy to do that.
I'll just give myself I was also an English major with writing emphasis, but I like the Oxford comma.
Yeah, I will try to get it out as soon as I can. I keep finding new information that I want to put in. I've got a whole section on our COVID-19 response from the end of last school year. So I'm pulling nuggets out, and I really got to stop stalling on the school reports and do those. So, but it's going really well.
But if you want to reach out to me, I would be happy to give my 2 cents or
absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, do you have one? Because I only have Melissa's.
Yeah.
Can you just shoot me whatever you have tonight
Yeah.
or tomorrow?
I have mine and Maureen's. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I was trying to work off Melissa's and I'm finding it's not structured the way I would want to structure it. So I want to see how much of it is me and how much of it is this is the way it's supposed to be done. And they're not online anywhere. I looked. What else do I have? I attended MASC training on how to be a good chair someday when I grow up and I'm a real boy. And I'm attending an equity symposium tomorrow. I think is anybody else registered for that?
I am.
It's a half-day event. I don't
Yeah.
know. No?
No, I looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm triple booked. So
Yeah, I don't know how long
in
I'll
when
be
I
able to
can.
stay. I really want to learn more. It's probably like SEL was when I joined the committee. I feel like this is an area of personal weakness for me and I want to learn more, but I don't know that I can give a half a day. So I will be on as long as I can, I guess.
Yeah, I'll try. Amy, also just sorry to interrupt your report, but on that, our division was talking today, actually via email about planning a division seminar. We're going to focus on equity. And I'm hoping, and actually Tracy, if you have some recommendations on maybe some speakers that we could bring in, I have one that I'm researching to see. So that's going to be a focus for us. So we'll offer, it'll be like an hour or 2-hour evening. This is like a conference that normally people would pay to go to, and they've opened it up. But I think one of the sessions I was talking about, like they were like, can you, if you want to see the opening speaker, like, you know, you can kind of pick and choose what you want.
Oh, okay. I probably need to do a little bit more reading then before I sign on.
Yeah, I forgot even that it was tomorrow, and definitely double booked. So.
Well, I'll take notes.
Thank you.
But I'm excited. I think it'll be good for me to get some more information and I forget what the next lunch thing is for MASC, but I wanted to shout out to my other members there that if you can spare the hour during lunchtime, I know we're all busy, but the topics that are coming up are really nice, really helpful, and not as repetitive as they're not repeating the charting the course anymore. I don't think. I think the next topic is something new, just like the being a chair was new. And I'll yield to Liz if I may.
Well, I was just going to add to what you're saying, that there's a seminar tomorrow at noon, 70 minutes on chapter 70 that I was going to try to attend. I also attended the wonderful How to Be a Chair seminar last Friday, and finally finished my my charting the course training with the second one on last Saturday. I had done some of it and hadn't been able to schedule the last one, so got that done. So that was great. It's very interesting. So now I'm all about these courses. They're very helpful.
You'll like the one tomorrow, the 70 on 70. I did that. That was one of the first ones I did this year during COVID. Just as a refresher, do it every year because it changes a little bit. And Tracy does such a great job.
Yeah, there were people there I was one of the oldest school committee members there. A lot of people had, just started in December and January, and on Saturday there were people there who had been a school committee member for a couple of years and were just getting a refresh. And I could see how that would be helpful. I don't, 4 hours on a Saturday that's rough, but it was useful. So. Yeah, something I might do again just for fun.
You don't want to do 4 hours on a Saturday, Liz? You can be our rep next year to the
whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we're very lucky. I think school committees are very lucky to have MASC. And that I also attended that How to Be a Good Chair seminar, and I thought it was phenomenal. So,
you did a very good job, Laura.
I'm just.
I do wish that there had been a third panelist. That's too bad.
He missed some had some technical difficulties. There was another panelist who was supposed to join. So Dorothy jumped in, I think, a lot more than she would have normally. She's phenomenal.
But it was interesting to hear the differences between, like, I got the sense that her committee was quite large.
Yeah.
More of an urban setting, and we're much smaller. I mean, the challenges in having a committee of 5 are almost as great as having a committee of 19. And I've met people that are everywhere in between that. They run the gamut, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you did
well,
a
it would have
great
been good
job.
for you and Liz to hear from somebody else, since you already know how I chair.
You represented Grafton very well, but I was a little disappointed to not see your hat in the background.
Oh, I redecorated. Oh, no, I haven't redecorated yet.
No, but your Grafton school committee hat, I thought you would have it in the background there, but you
Mm.
didn't.
No, I don't know. I didn't. Okay. Any other member reports? All right. Well, Amy, thank you for all your work on the GSC, and thanks for presenting tonight. I'm sure you did an amazing job, and sorry to miss it, so we'll have to catch it on the reruns. No correspondence. We don't need to go into executive session, so I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jennifer Connolly, aye.
Amy Marr,
Amy Marr, aye.
Liz Spinney,
Spinny eye.
Rahul Rati,
All right, aye.
Laura Often, aye. Thank you, everybody. Good night.